Barbary Coast. The name says it all. A den full of murder, conceit, and indecency. A place of joy for some and desperation for others. The perfect place for gentlemen of true charitable purposes to swoop in and try to make a difference for the better. But also the perfect place to lose yourself. Oh, Cornelius, I had such great hopes for you, for us, and yet a Mrs. Doubleday staying in your room, leaving behind clothes and red hairs. I'm grasping for straws here, but I really hope there's some sort of explanation behind this. Were you protecting her from someone? Someone who is now caught up with you both and taken you away from me? I have to know. And the answers lie in the Barbary Coast. This is Red Moon Role-Playing.
You arrive at the Barbary Coast, but to get there you go down Jackson Street. So you come down Montgomery Avenue and then Jackson Street, and it's quite busy in this area. And there's quite a few drunk people, there's prostitutes, there's street urchins, there's dead horses lying in the street. Not uncommon at all. Also not uncommon actually in Boston at this time, but more here than there.
Yeah, and it really, I really don't like that.
The smell. And the problem actually driving your carriage past a dead horse.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to go over it. And, well, it's not, it's a gruesome business.
Yeah. Yeah, and as an animal friend, that's horrible. I close my eyes every time we hit that bump over a dead horse, and
I admit I am eyeing the area with a bit of distaste myself, but, you know, needs must.
And, well, there's a lot of different bars and saloons, and there's some kind of circus, mobile museum it's called. And there's someone standing outside there calling people in. Step up to here, only 5 cents to view the lady with the mustache.
I do look over with interest, but I kind of tap my cane a little to my side. Because, no, focus. I'm admittedly thinking more of making the acquaintance of our lovely friend from earlier, to be honest. But, you know, focus. One treat at a time.
Yeah, there's so much here. It's like everything is interesting somehow. Some of these lots are not even built. There's tents, a lot of false fronts where you like nail together a wall of wood, and it has quite a large sign for whatever it is. It can be a grocery store or a brothel or whatever. And then on the back side, it's actually just a tent. When you walk through the wall, you walk into a tent.
Huh.
So there's a lot of those down over on this side of the Barbary Coast area.
Very makeshift.
Yeah.
Huh.
So it's very, very much a mix of like large, really hard buildings. There's wooden buildings, and then there's a lot of tents down here. And also over at the wharf side, there's you haven't seen those really, but there's a lot of warehouses and such, and a lot of boats. A lot of people live on the boats as well.
Yeah, I seem a bit uneasy thinking that this is where my would-be fiancé was spending most of his time. But I'm trying to cover it up, and I'm looking over to you and I'm asking my brother, so is it fulfilling your hopes of exoticness yet?
I must admit, sister, it actually is quite exciting, isn't it? I don't really see what the fuss is about. I mean, sure, maybe there's a few ne'er-do-wells in the vicinity, but, you know, sometimes this sort of way of doing things attracts those sort of people. And, you know, I mean, what's life without a little bit of risk, eh?
You on the other hand, can see that there's a lot of need for charity here. You can see small children running around playing,
suffering. There would be
dead horses and stuff like that. So.
There would have been something for him to do here, for sure. But everything is pointing in a pretty bad direction as for now. Maybe it started off good. Maybe it turned into something bad. Who knows? It has been a while since I saw him last.
What do you think, Miss Tremaine?
Well, this area is it's everything you want it to be and everything you can pay for. But on the other hand, if you can't pay, I guess it's hell.
I suppose that can be a problem for those less fortunate than ourselves, but, well, I suppose it's good that I'm fortunate.
Happy for you.
Thank you.
So I assume the carriage then comes to a halt at the Garden of Delights. And I let Miss Tremaine, who has been going with us, take the lead out and help me down from the carriage. And I unfold my parasol and look up at the place.
Well, it's not like the Palace Hotel. It's much less well kept. It probably started out something like the Palace Hotel. It's a large building, really large, hotel-style building. Used to be white, now it's not as white, more grey, brown. No one has really taken care of it in any way since it was built, and that was maybe less than 10 years ago for sure, but not yesterday. And it's not crowded when you arrive because it's afternoon. You're guessing a place like this really livens up in the evening. It was supposed to be a luxury hotel, you've been told, but it didn't really take off. No success because too many people going there got robbed.
Yeah.
It is a hotel, for sure. It seems to be still running in some parts as a hotel, but also you can see there's posters for boxing matches. It says Bone Crusher all over the place. Win cash prizes. Do your best against Bone Crusher. But there's also every sort of card game or game of chance you can think of advertised on the outside. Right now it's not the rush hour. It's probably gonna happen later. But there's still people moving around, getting in and out of the place. You can also see there's some security, people standing at the door, making sure that no one gets robbed right outside of the door. Anyway.
I ask Miss Tremaine, have you been to this place before?
Oh, I have, yes.
Do you know who I should talk to then? Or we should talk to?
Well, it used to be operated by Gregory Brooks.
Yes, as you said, Mr. Brooks.
That would be the owner. And he probably knows what goes down. I don't know him myself, but he was quite a famous character when I was around here.
Yes.
So we should probably try to get a word with him.
Sounds like a good start. I turn to Colby, who's coming out from, I suppose, the other carriage, or are we driving two carriages?
They can probably stand on the back side of it.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, so they just jump down. Yes. As he comes down as well, I say, well, it seems like we were going in here now to have a look and see what we can find out from this Mr. Brooks about any dealings my fiancé would have had here.
You notice that both Mr. Colby and Valentine, as well as Mr. Maine, they walk around with their hands on their guns or sword in her. They're scanning the area. They're ready.
Does she not carry a firearm at all?
She does.
She does, yeah. But that is her main weapon.
Well, it's not packed with people, but if someone comes up close, you guess that the sword is...
And perhaps we could even try and make the acquaintance of a Mr. Skull Crusher. After all, if he did have dealings with Mr. Doubleday, well, I'm sure an admirable drink or two, and we might be able to get some information from him.
There'll be time for your time in the ring, I'm sure.
Sister, don't joke.
Oh yes, it was the weight class thing.
Exactly, a weight class. I must admit, I nervously laugh. It can't be. It's a gentleman's thing. You can't be disputing the weight classes. Don't you agree, Mr. Tremaine?
I very much agree that there is this weight class thing is very important in boxing.
And we start making our way in, our big procession of me and the detectives, my brother. I suppose I'd be bringing my butler along as well, as like he's always there, and Bessie, of course.
Yeah.
What a nice little procession we have, actually.
Yeah. You're like a big posse of people.
Who are looking quite fine here in this area, I think.
You are well dressed for sure. When you get in to the place, there's no boxing game going right now, but it's a very large like
dome ceiling, almost like in a very
with the balconies, and you can see that there's this boxing ring in the middle that's right now empty, and there's not as much people, but there's roulette tables, there are faro tables, there are poker games going. There's even a dart board where there seems to be some betting on who's gonna hit the next 20 or something. So there's all kinds, and there's several bars along the walls, 2 different on each side. And Mr. Valentine points out to you like, I think that might be your bone crusher right there. It's a huge man. He's well dressed. He doesn't seem to be. He doesn't have the etiquette.
And he doesn't need to.
He doesn't need to. But he apparently is well paid, and he has like these huge hands.
What's he doing at the moment?
Well, he's standing around at the bar with some other people who might be also security at this establishment, sipping on some kind of drink. Might be a beer.
Right. I look around for anyone who would seem to be of the staff that we could talk to, or where we could start our...
Yeah, a female with a top hat with a little bit of a, what do you call that? A jacket, but with tall parts back.
Coat and tails.
A coat and
sort of-
tails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She comes up to you. She also has quite a lot of cleavage. Welcome to the Garden of Delights. How may I serve you?
I look her up and down very quickly, and I say, yes, thank you very much. We are here to see Mr. Brooks.
Oh,
Would he be in at the moment?
you're friends of Mr. Brooks?
We are indeed, certainly.
Well, then it hurts me to inform you that he's passed away, unfortunately.
That's very sad to hear.
Yeah.
Has there been a shift in management then?
It has. Mr. Brooks' good friend, Archibald Douglas, and his wife has taken over this establishment.
Mr. and Mrs. Douglas. That's very good. Do you think they would be available for a short meeting? We see we are looking for a certain person who used to frequent this place, and it is of utmost importance that we locate him.
Oh, I shall ask. In the meanwhile, maybe I can offer you some drinks at the bar,
Certainly!
or if you want, in the salon.
Well, business is first, but I suppose a lemonade wouldn't hurt.
She brings you over to the bar, and you get whatever drinks you want. Lemonade is also completely acceptable.
And if you wouldn't mind, whatever the gentleman down there is having, Mr. Skullcrusher, I believe,
Oh, Bone Crusher.
buy him whatever he would like.
Oh,
Courtesy of a Mr. Rutledge.
for sure, I will. She takes care of the business. You get your drinks. There's a bartender serving you, and she heads off. You can see that she slips up some stairs and disappears on the upper levels of the building somewhere. You can't see where she goes really, but she disappears for a while. There's gambling going, and there's also a band playing. So there's some black men playing over at on the other side with the bar. So it's quite a festive place you're in.
I'm happy to have my whiskey and watch the band. I do enjoy music.
I expect my detectives to want something sober to drink, but I let them have whatever they want and make sure that John pays for it, so that we're all staying on top of things.
Well, it seems that Dexter also drinks a lemonade, as does Mr. Main, but you can also see that Mr. Valentine, he takes his scotch, with water.
Well, can't have everyone on your side. I understand.
I say, good man, Valentine, good man.
You have to blend in. It's very important.
Of course, blending in. I like how you think. Blending in, yes. And as I say this, I lounge very relaxed in my fine green jacket and green suit.
I've hired Colby before. I don't know anything about Valentine. Tremaine comes with good recommendations, but I trust Colby to hire only the best. So I'm going to trust Valentine to do a good job as well. I'm just thinking this to myself as we now wait for the girl to come back.
And she does, after a while. Oh, I'm terribly sorry to say that the Baron of Queensbury is a little bit preoccupied at the moment. But he begs you to come back maybe later tonight, and we shall set you up with a meeting.
Well, I must confess, it's a little inconvenient. We've come all this way to say hello, and he doesn't even have time for a quick hello.
Well, it's terribly busy running the establishment. There's a lot of things that needs to take care of, and well, you didn't have really an acquaintance booked, so I'm very sorry. Maybe we could offer you something to eat and sit down at the restaurant.
I immediately am quite placated by this. Like, well, if you insist, then I suppose a little bit of food.
I look over to Miss Tremaine and I ask her, was there anywhere you wanted us to go in Chinatown while we had the time over, or we didn't really have any?
Well, not if we're not looking for something in particular.
Yeah, maybe we should have something to look for first. I point at my brother's gold watch and I ask him what the time is.
What is the time?
It's about 3.
About 3. Oh my, it is actually quite early. Still, I could use a bit of early dinner. Well, what say you, sister?
We just had lunch.
Yes, so now it's time for early dinner.
There are oysters.
Oysters, you say? Mm-hmm. I do like a good oyster. And I take a moment to just lightly groom my fine, manly moustache that I have.
Well, yes, I'm trying to think of anything else to do, or anything to do while we wait. I asked Detective Colby, is there anything else we should look into while we wait for them? Could you have anyone you could ask?
Well, me and Valentine, we can mix with the crowd and walk around, checking the place out.
Oh yes, please do. Maybe if there's some sort of bet master for the boxing who would know anything about recent bets being placed, for example, on this Mr. Bone Crusher, and if he would have any knowledge about my fiancée.
Certainly, ma'am. We will investigate.
Thank you. And I'll join my brother then for some oysters.
You get a cheer from Bone Crusher.
I give him a friendly wave back and smile.
No.
I'm a big fan, Mr. Bone Crusher, big fan.
Thank you. Well, you get seated in the salon, you get served oysters. It's not the best service. It takes quite a lot of time. Everything in this establishment seems to be running on some kind of slow motion. But you get seated and you get your. It's a festive mode, and there's music and there's a lot of things to look at. There's a lot of things to look at.
Yes, I normally would be a bit impatient with such service, but I confess I've been quite happily distracted by constantly looking around. I very much like this place. I don't see why it's disreputable at all.
It's funny. I'm thinking that oysters is a place that you would have in an establishment that really knew their thing. I mean, bad oysters will get you really, really, really sick. But I'm going to trust John, our dear butler, to sort of evaluate whatever we get, and I'll just sip on more lemonade in case he deems them unworthy.
Shakes the oyster. Well, madam, I'm British, so oysters is really not our... It's more French, right? But I think it's completely edible. Although, personally, I don't understand the taste.
And at that, I trust him, and I slowly have a few, trying to be patient, though I'm not much for this. I want to get on to business. It's such
You're
a waste
getting
of time.
impatient.
Yes, I am getting impatient.
Sister, just relax. We're doing very well. We're in some good hands. You could have a moment or two to enjoy yourself. You always are like this.
And I look around at the women flaunting their things, walking about, and the men, and the place is so far away from where I want to be.
Yeah, and at about 4:30, there's a stage opening up, and there's a cabaret of sorts. There's on the notion of women flaunting their stuff. There's a full line of them coming up, kicking their legs, and to loud music. It's really nice.
I tap my cane in enthusiastic applause, and each time there is applause, I call out, "Bravo! Bravo! Good stuff! Ah, excellent!" It takes a lot of skill to do that, sister. You see the formations they're forming? You can't just do that. Any old girl can't just do that. No, that requires skill.
I look about, just seeing if there's anyone that I could get along with, but I'm not here to socialize either. I'm mostly just I'm patting Bessie, making sure she's watered as well, and I talk to her, like, yeah, that's a good girl. What a place we've ended up in, huh? Yeah, all these people. I mean, I don't know where.
Is Mr. Bone Crusher still nearby?
You can see him on and off, but yeah, he seems to be walking around a lot. So he's probably not just here relaxing. You're guessing he's actually working, maybe as security.
What was Khan doing at a place like this, huh?
Well, sister, I imagine enjoying himself.
What did Bessie think of Cornelius? Did they get along?
Yeah.
Yeah, she gets along with most people, I think, except for my brother. So I was like,
Yeah.
I will excuse myself after a time and just sort of saunter over to Mr. Bone Crusher and give a little dip of my head and went, "Mr. Bone Crusher, it's Mr. Rutledge from earlier, yes?"
Mr. Rutledge, yeah. Nice to meet you.
An absolute pleasure. As I said, I'm a fan. A little bit of boxing back in my day. Not professional, of course, but just a little.
I see. Ah.
And well, I'm very curious. I mean, you're boxing tonight, yes?
Oh, I'm almost boxing every night.
Excellent. Would you say good odds tonight for yourself? Good odds? Who's your competition?
I don't even know, but I win. Be certain of it.
Oh, of course you will. I think I can see a winner when I see one, Mr. Bone Crusher. I can see a winner when I see one, and you are a winner.
Thank you, sir. I'm thinking maybe I can go for the world title. I think I'm ready.
How exciting! How exciting! Ah, yes, no, I'm enjoying your establishment a lot, actually. I just wish the circumstances of me coming here were a bit better. You see, I confess we're after a friend of mine who's got astray a little. An individual known as Cornelius Doubleday.
Doubleday?
Doubleday, yes.
Yeah, I've met him.
Was he a fan of yours as well? Between you and me, he did like a bit of a boxing game as well.
I think so. He bought me beer once at least. I remember that.
Ah, excellent. Yes. He was very fond of also sponsoring individuals like yourself. He'd often give you gifts or money to individuals such as yourself. I don't suppose that happened with you.
He didn't give me money, but he was very kind. I remember he talked about Ulysses.
Who?
The president.
Oh, the president! Ah, yes,
told me
yes.
About, they went out on hunts together, and also that the president liked boxing as well.
I give a little friendly sigh at this, remarking, "Indeed, yes, he truly was a man of many connections. I confess, between you and me, we're a little worried for his well-being. Apparently,
the president.
No,
I think he's all right.
I laugh a little. slightly impatient, but to be honest, actually, I know how to deal with people. I'm not bothered by this, distraction. No, my good man, no. I mean Cornelius himself. Apparently, he had a bit of a trouble with a card game recently, and some individuals were very upset with him.
Who is that? Cornelius?
Doubleday, Mr. Doubleday.
Oh, Mr. Doubleday. Yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about him.
Did you not?
Nah.
I don't want to dispute your establishment, but a few individuals have been saying that perhaps he was, dealt with cheating, apparently.
Oh, swiftly, I should say. These very hands actually threw him out.
Did they?
Oh, yes. He was cheating. You know what happens to cheaters?
Well, they do get...
You don't know?
Deserve.
Usually we kill them. But sometimes we sell them as slaves as well. Well, Mr. Doubleday, he was a well-known person. So the Baron, he said that we can't just kill him. So we stripped him and threw him out. Did it myself.
And very well done indeed, because I must confess that yes, cheating is very, very ungentlemanly, isn't it?
Very, very much so. You can't have cheaters around. How would that look?
Indeed.
When people come here, they expect to have a fair game.
It was here that he actually did the cheating.
Oh yeah, he was playing a card game with the do you know her, the Joseph woman?
Yes.
She's really smart, that one indeed. And she was also playing the circus manager, McPherson.
McPherson.
He's got this circus. It's really interesting. They have this bearded lady. They have what they call a strongman. Strongman! I ask, has he been in this ring? Has he withstood the bone crusher, huh?
You know what? I bet he hasn't.
He hasn't. I can tell you that, because I'm the bone crusher.
Exactly.
Yeah. I would crush his bones.
I give a little clap in amusement. So I don't suppose you know what happened to him afterwards, though. I mean, if he was on the street, could someone else have picked him up?
Yeah, he was on the street almost naked. Not funny. Then you have to... I don't know what. I had to throw him out.
Of course.
I couldn't hurt him. The Baron said so.
That's very good to know. Mr. Bowcrusher, it's been an absolute pleasure. Perchance I might see you later. I might even put a bit of money on you winning, of course.
Of course. You don't want to throw your money away like some idiots.
Exactly, an idiot. I am not, and neither are you.
Oh, thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the drink.
No.
I give a little bow, and I depart back to my sister.
You've noticed that your butler has engaged in some kind of conversation with a loud, quite drunk man with a cane, or he's a...
Some sort of disability.
Yeah, he's leaning on his... this
on a crutch.
Crutch, yeah. He's really loud, and he apparently addressed your butler with his last name.
Huh. I look up from Bessie, having been patting her, and I say one final word to her. You will let me know if you smell that smell from before, won't you? That little girl's dress. Very good, Bessie. And I get up from the table, actually, and I walk over to John.
You can see, walking over there, that Mr. Bellinger is quite uncomfortable. And when he sees you coming over, he's now very uncomfortable.
I say, John, is this someone? Is this an acquaintance of yours?
Oh, yeah. Well, yes, it is an old friend, actually.
Really?
Well, Madam Henry McAllister, at your service.
And Rutledge, and I take his hand like a man.
Very pleased to meet you, Mrs. Rutledge. I was in China with Mr. Bellinger, actually, and we was just going to buy me a drink, and we were going to discuss old memories.
I see. And what brings you
Make
here?
it a double whiskey, please.
Mr. McAllister, what brings you here?
To the U.S.
Well, to San Francisco and to particularly this establishment.
Well, everything, I guess. I mean, they have everything. Like the double whiskey we were talking about earlier. How about that? What do you say, Bellinger, you old you?
Well, John, we shouldn't be rude. Why not serve a...
Yeah, exactly. We shouldn't be rude to an old friend.
No. I make sure that John goes to fetch a whiskey for Mr. McAllister.
Oh.
And I ask, so what line of business are you in, Mr. McAllister?
I do anything. Actually.
Jack of all trades.
I wouldn't, do most things, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Almost anything.
And do you have many... Are you a friend of many people here?
Oh, I should certainly say so. I'm very friendly.
We have, we're actually looking for a friend of ours that had been missing for quite a while.
You're missing a friend?
That we are.
Here you have a new friend.
Nice to meet you again. Well, old friend would be a Mr. Cornelius Doubleday. Is that someone you would be familiar with?
Doubleday. Well, yes. I know him personally.
Really?
Yes, I do. Right now, I'm just feeling a little bit dry in my mouth to talk about my old friend, Mr. Doubleday. But I can tell you this much. I haven't seen him for a while. But I've heard stories.
What have you heard?
Well, my whiskey. I've heard that he hangs out with some of these squareheads. You know the squareheads?
Squareheads?
Yeah, wretched people.
Are you talking about the Chinese?
Oh no, but it's almost the same. You know the Finnish and the Swedish, Scandinavians, wretched people.
Scandinavians. You have a Scandinavian community here in the city?
Yeah, we could call it that.
Huh. And what do they do?
They rob people.
And he has been...
And wash clothes. But the Chinese are taking over that part, the washing clothes part.
So these Scandinavians have been in the company of Mr. Doubleday then?
Yeah, I've been told so. I haven't seen him for a while though.
Huh. Where would we meet these Scandinavians?
Sorry, madam. I think they hang around down the port mostly. Yeah.
Sailors?
Yeah. And rascals. I wouldn't be hanging out with those people. They're dangerous.
I see.
Sorry, madam. I seem to be out of my whiskey. Something wrong with this drink. It's empty.
I see. Well, it's been a...
Bellinger, Mr. Bellinger. Do you remember that time with when we were attacking the fort? And I saved your life? Huh? How about a little bit more? Yeah, I knew I could count on that. He's a really good man. You know Mr. Bellinger?
Of course, he's in my service.
Oh, he's the best. He's such a... We were so great friends back then. I think I will always reckon him being a good friend of mine.
I see. Well, you see, Mr. Bellinger now happens to work in my service and so is responsible for my finances. And I'll be needing to discuss a few matters with him back at my table.
Of course.
Didn't want to be rude, of course, but I will be needing him for a little while now.
You should, of course, have him for yourself. Do you know the Baron?
The Baron?
Yeah, the Baron who runs this place over here.
Are you referring to Mr. Douglas?
The Baron of Queensbury, I think. Yeah, that's probably exactly the same person as...
Baron of Queensbury?
Yes.
Huh. No, I didn't know that he had that title.
He knows a lot about boxing, it says. That's why he runs his boxing place now.
We were hoping that we would get a meeting with Mr. Douglas, though we are waiting for him to be free.
Oh, I happen to know where his office is, actually.
You do know?
Yeah. Would you like me to take you over there?
I look around the room to see if I can gain eye contact with either Mr. Valentine or Mr. Colby.
Well, yeah, you can.
I nod towards Mr. Colby to come over, and I say, "Yes, please." I tell Mr. McAllister, "Yes, we'd be happy to be taken to Mr. Douglas's office if that's not too much to ask."
I'll take the back stair and sneak up. I have a plan.
I see.
We just need to go by the bar because we need some disguises.
Disguises?
Yeah, I have a very good plan. You just follow my lead. He starts walking over on his crutch towards the bar.
I let Colby go after him. I'm sending him a glance.
Colby walks over. Apparently, there's some commotion at the bar. It seems like he's ordering something. And after a while, it comes in like a big thing with a
bowl.
Yeah, some kind of fireworks in it. And he takes that, and then he starts drinking out of it. And then he just drops it. And it looks very deliberate. Oh, I'm really sorry. I'm truly sorry. Now. He starts walking over towards one of the back stairs. And
I turn to John and say, "Well, it seems to me that he has caused a distraction for us."
And Maximilian, or Bonecrusher, as you know him, he walks over and like, "What's happening here?" And there's some of the staff coming over and picks up the pieces. And he actually disappears up the stairs. And Colby is on his tail.
And I follow along as well. And I suppose the whole company
I would wander over a little confused because I imagine this must happen just as I finish the conversation with Bonecrusher, and I'm a little. Then I look to my sister and go, "Sister, what on earth is going on? This is slightly strange."
And I'm not even meeting your glance because you see me just trailing off in this.
And I have a little double take at the event going on. I have a double take at my companions all walking off, and I just sort of follow.
You see the dog's tail disappearing up one of the stairs. Well, you all walk up 2 stairs and then around the corner, and you walk along the balcony, and then you catch up with McAllister at a big door where he's standing, leaning on his crutch, licking his fingers. That was a good drink. Sorry to squander it.
Well done, Mr. McAllister.
This-
That was a fine distraction indeed.
This door right here is it's the office. It's Mr. Brooks' office. I mean, Mr. Brooks is dead now, but it's the Baron's.
The Baron, you say? Ah, quite a character. And I go to my sister and remark, "So it appears that our friend Mr. Doubleday was indeed thrown out of this establishment by a Mr. Bonecrusher on the orders of a Mr. Baron."
Which appears to be Mr. Douglas.
Indeed.
Well, there's some discrepancy in the story, I must point out, because it's no Baron of Queensberry. There's a Marquis of the Queensberry. I actually know him personally.
Thank you, John. I would assume this title is more for flair than to have any real value.
Well, should we go see the Baron? He opens the door and kind of disappears behind it.
He just
In-
walks in
I-
without
He
knocking.
actually opens the door and for you and kind of disappears behind it. So he's somehow standing behind the door. In
He's
an
opening
awkward
it
position.
inwards for us. Okay then. Well, I nod to my company and I walk in.
You look into a like it's a large office, completely over furnished in every way. There's big feathers and stuff everywhere, and like little trinkets and statues, and fake gold, and there's three chandeliers different sizes. It's just everything that looks expensive. You can see it's not like everything. Some of it is fake and it's crap like that. But in the room, surprised by your entrance, is a woman and a man, both red-haired, and they seem to be in some kind of conversation that kind of just ends like, who is coming in here? And they watch you, and you're stepping in?
I'm stepping in with Bessie at my heels.
Step in, please.
Mr. and Mrs. Douglas, I presume?
Correct, so. Who do I have the pleasure to speak to?
I am Anne Rutledge, a former fiancée of a Mr. Cornelius Doubleday.
Mr. Doubleday? Yes, yeah, I remember him.
We're trying to come to an understanding of where he actually has disappeared off to. You see, he has been missing for the last 2 weeks. We've been tracing him to this fine establishment you have here, and I understand by your colleague, this Mr. Bone Crusher, that he has been thrown out on your account.
Rightfully so, I might add. Rightfully so, of course. This is, after all, a respectable establishment. But you understand, we are just concerned for our friend and would appreciate your assistance.
This is my brother, Rupert Rutledge.
A pleasure, Rupert Rutledge, sir. A pleasure, sir. A pleasure, madam.
You can see his face going from very perplexed to kind of scared, and then kind of happy, and back to scared, and then happy again. And he's like, yeah, well, the Nugget. That's the place where he stayed the last.
The Nugget?
The Nugget. It's just down the street.
And is this a sort of hotel? Or
it's a hotel.
Yeah.
Of sorts.
All right. And I understand as he was thrown out of this establishment, he would have... Do you think he would have taken to there? Because, you know, he did have a fine room at the Palace Hotel.
Oh, well, then he's probably staying at the Palace Hotel, because that's much better than the Nuggets. For sure. But, well, as far as I knew, he stayed at the Nuggets. That's what I've been told.
How do you know him? Are you a friend of his? Or, did you ever talk?
We have spoken. At occasion. I wouldn't call him a friend, because he was, as you said, cheating at my tables, and I had to throw him out.
I understand that you have a harsh policy on cheaters.
We can't have cheaters in my establishment.
Which of course is understandable. How come you chose to throw him out rather than any more?
Well, he's...
A gentleman!
Yeah, he's a gentleman. We threw him out.
So he has some sort of standing in these parts?
Well, he's kind of known. And, yeah.
What is he known for exactly?
For his works, I imagine, in charitable events. I sort of smile awkwardly.
You can say that. He's been spending some money in different parts of the city.
Doing what exactly?
Well, bewitching the people in this part of town.
Bewitching, as in hiring services, or as in trying to make a difference?
Well, both, I presume. He was really trying to make a difference.
In what regard?
Well, I guess he wanted to get rich.
You are talking about gambling.
Well, this is a gambling establishment, so yes.
That is what he did. And that is what he was famous for. Or rather, infamous for cheating.
No, he was... Well, that was an unfortunate thing with the cheating. He shouldn't have done that. But
So
he was famous because he was very, very generous.
He was generous.
By chance, the money he may have won here via alleged cheating, what occurred to that? Obviously, you usurped it off him?
Yeah, well, it was actually Mrs. Joseph who won the money in the end.
Yes,
He
that
was
is
sitting
correct. Yes.
at a card game, a tournament of sorts that we had put up. Very nice event, I must say, myself. It was 50 very good card players who took part, and the best woman won.
Was he often in the company of anyone?
Well, he had a lot of friends, but he shifted from day to day, I would say.
Any ladies with red hair, perchance?
Well, yeah, for sure. It was that woman who she's now at Chezame. She's on Pacific Street, if I don't remember wrongly. It's just around the corner.
I signaled to John to take note of this. And what was the place he stayed in again? Mr. Doubleday?
The Nugget.
The Nugget.
Interesting. So I suppose then you would have no idea what potentially could have occurred to our friend after leaving your establishment. Apparently, and rightfully so, he was... I leaned forwards a little. Wouldn't have had much on his person when he left. Would he also have been in a state of inebriation?
Well, not too much.
You don't have many individuals outside your establishment, of course, not inside, but outside, who perhaps prey on individuals coming back from a late night.
We make our damnedest to have this a secure place where you can play a fair game. But well, this is the Barbary Coast, so there's I can't secure more than my establishment and the street outside.
Indeed,
of it.
and it is a fine establishment. How long have you been the major owner?
Half a year.
Oh, you were an associate of Mr. Jacobs?
Do you mean Mr. Brooks? The previous owner?
Yes.
Oh, my old friend Mr. Brooks, he actually put me in his will, and then I inherited.
That's wonderfully fortunate, I say, completely thinking that sounds very legit. Very legit.
Well, thank you then. I think we have some good new information here. I appreciate. Sorry for barging in like this, but we are in a bit of a hurry to try.
I see. We were just discussing wages for the working women and men, and it's very important you pay a fair wage.
Of course.
Very well. Let me allow you to return to that discussion then.
Well, thank you, madam.
And we will move along, unless there's something else you would like to ask Mr. Colby.
Not at this point, but I might return.
Very good. And I start to leave.
And I linger for a moment more, admiring some of the gaudy interior. And I remark, "The fine establishment, sir. I may be returning later, putting some money on Mr. Bonecrusher. I bet he never loses."
No, that's a safe bet. Money in the bank, I should say. Money in the bank.
Indeed. And I nod and tap my cane a little and move along.
As we walk out and down the stairs, I turn to you. So we have the Nugget and we have the Chezame. I would assume, if he's not been seen for a while, the Nugget would be a dead end. It'll probably be cleaned out, unlike the Palace Hotel.
I agree. I imagine perhaps this other individual, on the other hand, could be a good person to speak to. That's what I'd think anyway. I mean...
Also, Bessie should be able to find her quickly if she has been, or is still lingering in the place.
Yes. I'm sure the people here are the most trustworthy sorts, but I don't know. I believe them when apparently, because he was a gentleman, of course, that they wouldn't have roughed him up too badly. So perhaps his trail does for the moment end outside this establishment.
I think so. And I also had it said by an acquaintance of John that we bumped into that he had been spotted with some Scandinavian people.
Scandinavian people? How intriguing. Oh.
That were apparently up to no good down in the port. Anything you would know of, Miss Germaine?
Not really. I know none of these Scandinavian people. But, well, maybe Mr. Colby and Mr. Valentine could, or one of them could investigate.
Yes, please. Colby, you or Valentine, would you mind making your way to the port and see if you could find anything, any traces there?
I'll send Mr. Valentine and we'll see what.
Excellent. I suppose then we shall make our way to this exotic locale. What was the name again?
Chezame.
Is that French?
I do think so.
I thought it was French, yes.
It's actually just around the corner here, so you can more or less walk there.
Excellent. Well, let
Well,
us
we do that then.
make our way there.
Good. Okay, great. So we exit the establishment.
Yeah, you make your way over to the Chez Ahmed, which is very apparent a brothel.
You have listened to a special episode of Red Moon Roleplaying where we play The Baron of Barbary Coast for Western. The Baron of Barbary Coast was written by Anders and Tove Gilbring. Western is published by Åskfågeln. The music was made by Phonotech and is used with permission from their label Cryochamber. Visit cryochamber.bandcamp.com or their YouTube channel for more delicious drone and dark ambient. As always, a big thank you to all supporters. If you appreciate the show and want to encourage our work, head over to Patreon and see if you want to support the show there. We hope you enjoy this special episode and look forward to meeting again. Thank you for listening.